Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autobiology. Today, I have with me Lori Lutz, who calls herself a human success pioneer. And I think that after looking at Lori's website, which is amazing, by the way, you have to check it out. Like, everyone should
Thank
have
you.
a Lori Lutz in their life. But Lori, welcome. I want to formally welcome you to the program. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, you just
Oh,
stole my
man. Okay.
line.
All right.
So to your audience, we don't know each other that well. And I always say everyone needs a
Shut
little
up.
Lori Lutz in
Really?
their
You really
lives.
saying that? Oh my God. That's, but you know what?
You.
That's exactly what I got out of looking at your website. Yeah.
Oh my
Okay. So your
gosh,
marketing
that's
is point on
amazing.
or on point.
Well, I don't push that. I usually just joke around with people that are close
Yes.
with
You got it.
me,
Yeah.
but yeah.
All right. So now your business is called Vision. And I would love for
Yes.
you to explain, like, what exactly do you do for people?
Yeah. So who is Lori Lutz is a really great question. Hello, Lori Lutz here, this chick, and I have primarily worked behind the scenes, worked and lived behind the scenes. And as Jennifer just said, I am a human success pioneer, one that has led humans and the companies that they power to their optimum, right? So I am now ripping the curtain open and saying, hello, world. How can I help? So I am investing my time in folks in achieving what matters most to them so they can better show up for their families, for their friends, for their careers, and mainly for themselves. In finding that balance and alignment of personal and professional priorities that we all
Do you
need.
find that people don't necessarily know what it is that they really want?
Yes, yes. And that is a portion of my branding a little bit. You probably didn't notice, but uh, the idea of like my business card, for example, I
Yes.
don't know if you guys can see it, but it's like a blank canvas. And, you know, they get to decide what their vision is. And we collectively work through in finding it, whatever they decide it is. I mean, same with my website. I have like these paint swaps that people probably don't notice, but blank canvas, starting anew, and just talking through what makes someone lighter, what lights a human up, and let's figure out how to incorporate that in the day to day.
I'm curious, what do you think people would find most shocking about working with somebody like yourself? Or just, what sort of things have you stumbled upon in this coaching world that people would be like, do a double take about?
Yeah, it's been really enlightening to, you know, realize that not a lot understand the value of the coaching relationship and that impact it makes on your well-being and mental health. There was I'm about to
Okay.
blow everyone's mind. There was a 10-year growth study on over 50,000 brands. And it found that the organizations that put the people in the center of it all outperformed the market by 350%.
350%.
I'm going to say that again.
Wow.
Yes. Their competitors, the market itself outperformed by 350%.
So you're saying When
And
companies focused on their employees, like their internal employees, not their consumers, not the customers, but the actual employees, the company as a whole then performed 350% better than their closest competitors.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because they're putting their people, the well-being of their people at top. And when those humans are feeling supported, feeling that love, how are they going to treat the
Right.
clients? Right?
Well, because
It's not mind-blowing, but what is mind-blowing is that people don't realize that's how much you can move the needle when you really bubble up that importance, that support of making sure that your people are at the center of it all. You know, Vision was born from the idea that, business and results are absolutely important, but it is investing in the humans and allowing them to find out who they are and realizing the control they have over their decisions. And that just, once that light goes off, of course they're going to show up for their careers.
yeah, so how do we balance the fact that a lot of that has to do with with managers, and how can we if somebody who's working comes to you and makes this discovery, how is it that you work with them to upwardly influence managers to kind of realize this? Because that's
Yeah.
the hard part, right? That's what I always run into um, in my training world is I always do what I can to pull in managers because that's really where the power is to make that change.
And that's what I was going to say. The leaders absolutely have to be involved. I ran across a stat not too long ago that the number one job satisfaction is is being aligned with your leader, feeling respected, feeling heard, feeling seen. The number one job satisfaction. So the leaders have just as much work as the humans, running the machine.
Yeah. I recently did a big project for a company, and they had me put together a series of workshops from the book, The Leadership Challenge, by I think it's Kuz and Posner. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last names, but it's like a leadership Bible. And one of the things I found interesting was how they said the number one thing that you could do to improve employee performance was to call out a person in front of all their peers about what a wonderful job they're doing. And it took 2 seconds, and yet it improved employee performance by some astounding number. I can't remember what it was, but they said it was also the most underutilized way to improve employee performance at the same time. It's the easiest thing to do, and yet the least thing done.
So simple, so simple. And you have to relate it to, when humans are getting that encouragement and they're feeling happier, they're feeling lighter. That is a better existence for us all.
So you really kind of start the ball rolling. You provide that for people. You get them in that headspace where they are feeling respected, they are feeling heard, which allows them to sort of now open up their imagination, their possibilities. They start thinking about goals. I mean, how would you describe your ideal client? Like who is somebody that would really benefit from working with you? Everyone besides everyone.
That right. Well, that answer seems so simple. But I have found I am challenged by that. Um, because I'm not ready yet to put myself in a
Mm,
box. I'm, not ready to have any limitations on who I'm helping. I'm going to age myself for a second. We didn't call it coaching back in the day. I spent 20 years leading humans of all generations and all backgrounds, and we navigated life and career issues together. I think what has been successful for me is that I morph to what the client needs in the moment. Um, I will say, a theme has kind of bubbled up recently. And I don't know if it's the world or kind of the environment that we're existing in right now, but some major career
mm.
transitions.
I
You're
am
probably not
not, but
surprised by
yes,
that.
I can see that.
Yeah. From leaving a gig without even knowing what's next, um, to craving that better balance that we just kind of talked through, balance and alignment of personal and professional priorities, but then also some really wanting to reinvent
So
themselves.
so what does it so what does it look like when somebody works with you? Can you kind of walk me through like what you do um in that process?
Yeah. Yeah. First off, safety, respect, a judgment free and supportive space. Um, I love outside perspective, good and bad. It's really what develops us. And I have a client that explained my unique ability was how I tactfully blend compassion with performance. It had me thinking, though, why is that unique? Everyone deserves a partner to ideate with, to talk things through, to scream, to cry, to jump for joy, all the while feeling really comfortable in their own skin. So there's a bit of structure to my way for accountability purposes, but the time is my clients. I am not in there day to day. So if we need to pivot from what we were focused on, the
Mhm.
previous connect, that's taking too much real estate up in their mental space, then we do that.
Okay. So I completely agree with you on the whole psychological safety thing. Um so you work on individual people, but I work on entire sales forces with that same principle in
Yeah,
mind. And I love what you're saying about uh, you have to make it so that you can offer up an additional perspective, but not make it feel like you're judging how they're thinking at the same time. And you're right, that takes a lot of tact. But once you explain to someone uh,
yeah,
not only why, what the response is in the brain when you do that, um,
yeah,
you know where I'm
yeah.
going with this.
Uh-huh.
Um, but once you make people aware of it, it's like a huge aha moment. So, do you
Yeah,
find that once you start teaching people, you start showing people how to do that because you're doing it with them, that they can turn around and kind of do it with the people in their lives as well?
absolutely. Absolutely. So as far as depending on where people get their education, you don't necessarily need certification, accreditation in the coaching industry. But depending if you do, depending on where you go, um, a lot of it is just pulling out the ideas that naturally live inside all of us. I worked my tail off for 20 years for life and career experience. So the consulting part of my business is a little bit of that outside perspective, but I always ask permission. So I'm listening to what they're saying. And then if something, after we take a pause, if something kind of bubbles up in my mind of what worked for me, I'll insert that and say, hey, this was just how it worked, how it landed with me. It won't necessarily be the same way, but would you like to talk that through? And I think just having that open dialogue is where folks feel really comfortable and they start to open up with you. And then they can take that to their lives, their personal, their professional lives.
So I think that when we talk about this kind of stuff, some people like myself who also did a big major career change, at some point. And typically when you do that, you did it, I did it. It is kind of scary, and you need somebody to talk to that can keep your eye on the prize. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, it is really hard sometimes to formulate goals. And what I found was that even when somebody asked me the direct question, "What do you want?" I found it really hard to put it into words.
Did you see me kind of run around of like, who's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
client? Like, yeah, I get it. I think we all deal with that. And I think that's okay. Everyone is going to be different. And that's the beautiful thing about all of us. And it's just providing that support and that structure that a lot don't even realize they
Well, I think
need.
everybody needs that. And I kind of like harken back to the guidance counselor in high school where
Yeah.
they were trying to kind of like nudge you into thinking about like, well, what do you want to do with your life, or what are you interested in? But then I feel like we got into with adults, we started hearing about life coaches. But I feel like it was introduced in a way that people didn't understand what that meant, and it got a lot of people kind of made fun of it. Like it became the butt of a lot of, you know, Saturday Night Live skits about, having a life coach. Like, what does that mean? But um, but it is sort of like having that person to help you figure out what's next, or to see the things that you
Absolutely.
don't see, to offer up those other perspectives, things that they probably never even thought about.
One of my favorite things that I hear from a client when we're connecting is, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. Oh, I wouldn't have ever done it that way, And that to me gives me so much joy when I hear that. I mean, they don't see me like, but that's what I'm doing
Yes,
internally.
yeah. So speaking of that, what does success look like to you when you're working with a client?
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite uh, experiences, we worked together for 9 years. And so you just can imagine a lot of growth during that period. And they were this insecure, quiet but beautiful flower that didn't quite know their potential or absorb it personally or professionally. And Jennifer, today, they are this rock star. And I'm talking in all aspects of life, career, partner, parent. And because we're so close, um, I often jokingly bring up, back in the day, do you remember all that resistance I dealt with, right? But look at you. Um, and, another example of success is speaking of the career transition, I work with a individual that their contract wasn't being renewed. It was a shock. They are the breadwinner, kiddos. So just imagine the heaviness that impact of not having that trajectory that they can count on. But through the work and the drive, they are in the best place that I couldn't have even imagined. And normally I'm like, they don't see it. I try to hold my emotions, not like I'm doing today, but I try to hold back my emotions of, but I mean, it's just mind blowing, and the best place that they're in. This new gig, this new organization sees them, hears them, which they didn't really announce that those were their core values, but they were. And one of the best things about, aside from this organization supporting them, is they just recently shared that their partner gave them a hug and said, "It's so good to have you back."
Oh,
I know. I mean, I'm going to cry. And it was record time that we worked through all this. And it's just amazing. It lights me up. It hopefully lights them up.
so I think there's a huge mental health aspect to what you do. It's not just helping people figure out where they want to go, but it's keeping them in the right headspace to get there. There's a lot of problems in the world right now, in terms of mental health. I'm just curious, what your take on things are right now with that.
Yeah. I mean, it is, it is so serious that we need, as humans, just to be uber sensitive and aware. I'm gonna throw some I love stats. You know me that I'm a nerd, but I'm gonna throw out some stuff here. 1 in 3 employees, and this includes executives, struggle with fatigue and poor mental health. 56% of employees don't feel as if their leadership cares about their mental health. And 91% of the leaders, the executives, think their employees think they care about it. That is such a sad disconnect. We can do better.
Yeah. Wow, that is a huge disconnect. I mean, I'm just thinking back to, all the corporate jobs I had, and my first home office corporate job I ever had, I really felt like that company cared about me and that, I was part of the family. And that was probably true for the first, I worked for that company for 12 years, for the first 7 years. And then I felt this change happen in the early 2000s. And, you could feel that the tides were turning. People were not treated the same way anymore. I actually remember getting my 5-year work anniversary gift from my company. I got a 10-year anniversary gift from my company. Who does that anymore? Because people don't stay at a company for more than 3 years anymore. And it's because they're constantly being made to feel like they're not valued, I think.
I agree. I agree. I
That's
remember at one of my first careers back in the day, and I think I had been there maybe for 8 years at this time. And there was a contract worker, and he was younger than me, and was just, it's like, how long have you been here? And I was like, 8 years. He was like, what? Like, I think that is even seen, whereas before it was highly respected. Like, you didn't want to
highly
see,
respected.
yes, you didn't want to see when you were hiring people, you didn't want to see 20 different jobs.
No, it was a
You
red
wanted to
flag.
see,
It
you
was a
wanted to
red
see the
flag.
loyalty. Yeah.
And now it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy to think about how that's changed. All right. So what are like 3 things that you wish people knew when it came to, balancing or career coaching or just, in general?
Yeah. So, I think you know this about me. Uh, if you follow me either at, via LinkedIn or Instagram, I always tend to incorporate uh, nerd tips, is what I call them. Really brain focused on uh, what people should know to improve their cognitive, etc. So I want to share 3 of my favorites, and we'll start with the first nerd tip. And this one is an innocent act of from families and friends when someone's venting and experiencing kind of a heavier moment. Our first reaction is like, "What? That's crazy. Don't you feel so outraged?" Well, we need to roll back from that, because what happens in that scenario is that we are forcing them to re-experience that emotion. And you know this, and that builds a new neural pathway that encompasses negativity and pain. And us being a cheerleader and rallying around our friends and family, that is the last thing we want to do. So I think that's the first one that I think we all should be mindful of.
Okay, I have to give my commentary on this. Okay,
Yeah.
so for the audience, like this is why Lori and I met, because we are both huge brain nerds, huge neuroscience nerds. And I can't I literally can't believe you just said that, because I just released a podcast last week with Dr. Lynn Morrell, who is a trauma therapy specialist. And she is different from all the other trauma therapy specialists I've ever met, because that's exactly what she said. Other therapists make you relive the trauma over and over, and it creates this, myelinated neural pathway in which you are constantly recalling that instead of just dealing with it and moving forward with what you're going to take from this experience and do differently, or how you're going to enhance your life now that you've had this experience, and yada yada yada. So I couldn't agree more with you. Like,
Yeah,
that was
I love it.
amazing.
I love timing, and that's wild. So I obviously need to listen to that one. But yeah, I mean, we're united. We're on the same page.
Yes. Okay.
So nerd tip number 2, our amygdala, that frontal portion of our temporal lobe, gets hijacked. It literally stops functioning when we experience an emotional overwhelm of stress, activating that fight or flight, freeze mode. And some of the simplest things that we can do to reset our nervous system. Now, stick with me. This one's a little silly, but you'll see animals doing it all the time. And Taylor Swift did sing about it. Shake it off. Shake it off.
It off. Yes.
And I get it. we're not always going to be in an environment where we can do the shakes or a silly dance. So find that practice, that deep breathing, something to reset your entire nervous system so you can gain back control of that amygdala.
Yes, yes. That's, I mean, I teach all about the amygdala to my, sales folks, because what we're trying to do is make sure that we don't set off the amygdala when we're having a conversation with someone. So I teach it from that perspective, but you're right. A lot of the times people are already, in amygdala hijack, or we're in amygdala hijack because we're nervous about the, upcoming conversation, something like that. And we need lots of ways to reset the amygdala, both in ourselves and in, our audience, that we're speaking to. And I can't stress enough what you said about how when you are in amygdala hijack, or the person you're speaking to is in amygdala hijack, your prefrontal cortex, which is where all your executive functioning happens, your critical thinking, how you make decisions, how you learn, when and if you're going to store a memory of whatever's being said to you, it temporarily shuts down when you are in hijack. And if you think about it, it makes a ton of sense, right? Because if your body thinks you're in imminent danger, you don't have time to figure out an algebra equation. No, you want to get the heck out of there. And so your body shuts off thinking, and you just, fight, flight, freeze, if you're a bunny rabbit, or fawn, which means you just nod your head and agree until you can get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying. You're right. I agree with you wholeheartedly with point number 1 and point number 2 so far.
All right. And number 3 is my favorite. So nerd tip number 3 is that we build the thickest synaptic connections in our brains when we are engulfed in activities that we love. When brains are being scanned and we're doing something we love, they literally light up. So if we can find 20%, that's all, 20% of love in what we're doing, it ignites this energy, this feeling of resilience, and that sense of fulfillment. 20%. We can all do that.
20%. So, what you're talking about from what I explained is called long-term potentiation. And we make it very personal. It stays with us, but it actually restructures the synapse in those neurons, and it makes it stronger and stronger and stronger, so that not only are we more easily able to recall it is what we're doing, but we have fond memories about it. And uh, we can build on that neural network much easier because it's strengthened. And then, we have the whole neurons that fire together, wire together thing. And just,
I love that.
Hebb's postulate. So, yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you with number 3 as well. It does a lot of times comes down to the brain. And if you understand the brain, you can understand how to change yourself and how to better interact with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once spread it out. That's what I'm trying to do. Sprinkle it out. When everyone has that knowledge, it's so powerful, and just everyone's able to live a little bit lighter, be a little happier in their, life. Life can be hard. Let's lighten it up.
Yeah, and I think people forget that they have the ability to choose, how they want to show up. And if you're not happy with how you're showing up, then they need to get in touch with someone like yourself that can show them how to make those changes. And But I think the most important part of this, and I keep going back to this, is people know that they want to make a change, but they don't necessarily know either how to do it or exactly what it is that needs changing. Do you find that a lot too?
Mhm. And I think through conversation and open dialogue and going back to that safe space where it's okay to say whatever's on your mind so that we can dive deep and figure it all out together. It's having that partner, you know. I went in, I saw Chelsea Handler recently, and she had an opener, Vanessa Gonzalez, who, by the way, is hilarious. So I highly recommend her. And
Okay.
she said, you know, she was talking about therapy, but in this dynamic, it's in relation to, it can be with coaching too. She said, I pay for a bestie. And that's what I am. I am your bestie. I am your partner. I am your ride or die so that you can navigate life and feel a little bit lighter, because most people don't even realize they need that in their life to feel better, be better.
Yeah, people need somebody to talk to. Everybody needs that one person that they can just call up and they can just spew out whatever is going on with no judgment, and somebody's just going to listen if they just need to listen, and they're also going to have the ability to make suggestions or provide advice if that's what's asked for. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people.
I know. I know.
Yeah, that's sad. Do you think that that's gonna change, though? I feel like it's gonna change. If you fast forward 5, 10, 20 years,
Mhm.
how do you see what you do evolving?
Yeah. To answer in short, it's going to be a lot busier. There are going to be businesses and folks independent of organizations that really start to understand the value and the impact it has on mental health and well-being. That's what I really see in, you know, that probably 5, 10, even 20 years. This is going to be, it's going to get a lot busier, and that means the existence of humans will be a lot better because they have that partner to kind of talk through things. Even if there's not anything on their mind in the moment, opening up that dialogue with those great questions and something will bubble up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a one-on-one relationship with a life coach, but I do belong to a group. It's like a business slash life coaching, community. And we talk 7 days a week. I mean, it's very comprehensive. And that's something that I found out that I really needed, just even as a solo entrepreneur, because it's a lonely business being in business for yourself. And, there's the other thing is, and you mentioned this too earlier, we don't know what we're really good at. Sometimes we need somebody else's perspective to kind of like give us, like, this is how I see you.
Yeah.
Here's where I think your strengths are. Here's what I like about how you do this. And you can't be that objective about yourself. You need somebody to kind of do that for you.
That outside perspective is invaluable. It's what has made me grow, you know? It helps everyone, good and bad. Like I said, it really develops us.
Yeah. So when I just in this conversation, when I think about what you do and how you actually started doing this within your own organization, I don't know, I feel like it's you're almost one of those people that could be a consultant for an actual business too, and not just like individually. Like businesses can hire you to kind of, provide that touch point, you know.
Absolutely. So, I we talked a lot about individuals, and I also I also offer for organizations, and it's the ones that really care about the well-being of their people. So kind of folding me into, and we would have one-on-one and group connects, depending on, everything will be custom, but depending on their need, their pain points, they would fold me in as, like you said, a consultant, a trusted advisor to kind of fold in and connect with their employees one on one, and then group connects, because that engagement, especially in the groups, this,
Oh yeah.
you see that the culture amp up because they feel so good, being able to save space, talk in the room with one another, with colleagues. So yes, that's a piece of my business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know in my community, we're really encouraged to share even the smallest of small wins on a daily basis. I mean, it could even and for some people, it's literally, what, I got up and I got on this call. Like, you know, that is a huge win for them, and then, some of us, it's, being able to get a new client. For some of us, it is, I made it home for dinner every single day, just, and had dinner with my family, or I didn't work over the weekend. I mean, even just small, small steps towards that balance and goal.
They add up. I talk about that so much. Like, we need to celebrate those small wins, because you're going to look back one day and be like, yeah, because it adds up to so much more.
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking like, oh my God, there's no way that I could spend, half an hour on a phone call every morning with strangers. Like, who has time for that? And now I'm like, if I don't talk to these people, like, because and here's the other thing that happens. Because I know, like, it's what we call this priming. Um, because I know that every single day that there's a group of people waiting to hear like what awesome things happen to me, I start looking for awesome things to happen to me that I keep track and I write down, and I have this wins journal, and then, then we're encouraged to look over it and be like, wow, really good things are happening to me.
Yeah. And that's so good because you're tracking it and you have that journal. Like, one of the simplest tools is to write those down so that that you can reflect back. Be like, "Oh yeah, I did do that. That was amazing." So that's so smart.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Lynn and I were talking about this too. Is and you mentioned this earlier as well, is just being able to get your feelings out either verbally or on paper just helps tremendously when you are trying to figure out how to um, balance and move forward or get yourself out of hijack and things like that. So yeah,
That's the simplest, and it's a neuroscience tool.
it is a
Write it down.
neuroscience tool.
Even if you
I know.
believe it, just write it down.
All right, so what is, if you could pick like just one thing that you want to leave people with today, like what's probably the most important message that you have that you want to
Yeah.
leave people with?
Oh, great question. I'd like to share a quote by Abraham Lincoln. It's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. Let's live. Let's live.
Live, live, live. So your website, ironically enough, is called
liveyourvision.co.
liveyourvision.co. And you are the Lori Lutz.
Yes.
And if people want to learn more about how you can help them and structure, identify and structure a path forward to help them reach their goals and help them become a success story. All your information is there. And
yes.
what other ways can people follow you or get in touch with you?
Yeah. So the website, liveyourvision.co, there's a Let's Explore page that you can fill out, and it comes directly, as well as I'm on LinkedIn, the Lori Lutz. So you can find me there. And then on Instagram is just the handle is live_your_vision.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Lori, for your time today. Like I said, 10 years ago, if you'd say life coach, people were like, woo woo, like, why do I need this? And now today, I think it has a much different meaning. And it's literally that adult guidance counselor that everybody needs, to help them figure out what it is that they truly want and figure out a way to reach that goal.
Absolutely. Live lighter.
Live
Always
lighter.
the goal.
All right. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye for now.
Bye.